Hello, and welcome to another episode of Minnesota Liberty, sponsored by the Libertarian Party of Minnesota. I am one of your hosts, Rebecca Whiting, and with tonight, TJ can't be here. He's busy doing other things. But I have a guest with me, Reverend Tim Christopher, who is, I don't know, I guess I'll let you introduce yourself. All of a sudden, I'm drawing a blank on what I should say about you. So why don't you just, go ahead and tell us who you are.
Well, Rebecca, first off, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to hang out with you tonight. I'll start off by saying that I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I am a grandfather. Uh, Three things that I am overly happy being. I am a community helper. That's what I don't call myself, a community organizer. I help people in the community and try to make a difference in any way that I possibly can.
Mm-hmm. And so you're down in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
A lot of the work that I do is in between Minneapolis, um, St. Paul, or wherever I get a phone call to help somebody. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, it could be anywhere.
So what does that look like? Like, what are the kinds of things that you would do to help, members of the community? What does that look like on just I don't know, a weekly or monthly basis?
Um, Today, I'll give you an example. I get phone calls of young women who don't have enough money to have diapers for. So in my garage, I've got boxes and boxes of Pampers, diapers for some young lady don't have diapers. We try to keep as much formula as we possibly can get. I'll get a call for something. I get a call for something like that. Um, you have, what you and the people of Bemidji did for Christmas. You guys, helped a whole family, two families. Um, I am pretty much the magnet that brings everything together. Somebody will call me, "Hey Rev, I've got a family that need coats."
Mm-hmm.
I'll go out and either find an organization who has coats. We will go out and either buy coats or something like that, and bring the parties together. It's basically what we try to do.
Okay. And so so the time I visited your church, it's literally, like your church, the parking lot, and your neighbors are all the way around you. So you're really the church that you go to is in the center of your neighborhood, essentially.
Yes, yes. The church that I preach at is literally like you said. I mean, you've been there. It's literally right there in the middle of everything that goes on. There's nothing that doesn't go on that we don't pretty much know anything about, or the church and things of that sort. So yeah, it's right in the middle of, if there's a gang fight, if there's a shooting, um, the church is right there in the middle of everything that goes on.
So how often does that happen? Like the activity, the things that, like the darker parts of the community, I guess. How often does that happen?
Well, just the other night there was a double shooting right up the street.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens all the time. I mean, there's not a time, pretty much. There's not going to be a day that there's not going to be, gunshots in that area, somewhere around there. I took you up Penn Avenue. I, put you on Penn and 38th, Penn and 30. 37th and 36th, where it's basically called Fentanyl Alley, because that's where you go and you can buy your fentanyl right there on Penn Avenue, and that's where everybody show up and go.
So I mean, a lot of lower income families, a lot of drug problems, a
Yes,
lot of violence.
yes.
Um, I mean, and actually, Bemidji's community is very similar. I think Bemidji has one of the higher rates of crime and violence in Minnesota, also. And a lot of it, I think, is because, the median income is very low. There's not a lot of opportunity. People that are up here, I don't know. It just, there, there's not a lot of like ways to get out of that either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the families that, where that happens, it just keeps happening over and over again, and trying to break free of that cycle is very challenging.
It's the same thing. Well, exactly what you just said. Breaking free from that cycle, it is very challenging, especially when you don't have a lot of resources around you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think I get upset about is like I said, there is no jobs. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're a single mother. You have two kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and you have to use public transportation. Um, I mean, you've got 55, you got 94, you got all of these central hubs or central roads that these buses travel,
Mm-hmm.
but there are no jobs for these people around the city. So, for a single mom with two kids, my mindset is give her a place of employment where she can get on the bus, probably drop her kids off at daycare, get back on the bus. That bus takes her or drops her off at work. She can get off of work, pick her kids up from daycare, get back on the bus. You understand? There's no central route to a job for some of these single women.
Right.
So therefore, now these women, single moms, rely on the county for money. There's not going to be a time that you're looking to wean them off of that
Mm-hmm.
with a job that's close enough where they can make a living. A job where they can make $25 an hour. There's no jobs like that around the city that these women can go to get themselves off of the government help. So they stay in that cycle. That cycle is always going to be there because there's nothing to help them come out of the cycle.
Right.
Right? So if
Well,
there's nothing to help them come out of the cycle, what are they going to keep doing? They're going to keep looking to the government to take care of them.
right. And I mean, anybody that's raised kids, even with a partner at home, knows how exhausting that is. And so when you're raising kids, working and doing it all by yourself, and I think what I've noticed too about like people who are cycle breakers, that they are not only going to have to work harder to break free of like the cycle that they were born into, but also typically they're going to have to go at it very alone. So that's, I mean, all of those kinds of pieces of that puzzle fitted together make that, I mean, very challenging. And it would be easier to just, you know, I mean, it's not ideal. And I guess, it may correct me if I'm wrong, even though it's not ideal. And there's probably a lot of people that recognize this, that's ideal, but they don't know how to just be able to get free of that. Right?
That's true.
So, I mean, I feel like also just, observing that this is where, a community really needs to be able to step up and to recognize what people need around them. But if the entire community is all going through the same thing, then what do you do? That feels really big.
Yeah. It's funny. Just let me. I can see some of the comments on here, and the dude said, "From the background, I thought he lived in Green Bay."
Not a Vikings fan.
I no. I've got a.
Well, I see Viking stuff up here too.
See that right there?
Yeah,
there.
it's backwards in the screen here, but yeah, now I see it.
And right there. So that's my grandson. My grandson is a big Viking fan. So I had, because he comes down here with me every once in a while, and he'll get on my podcast. So I had to put something in here Viking for him. But I'm a Packer fan living in Minnesota. So let me make sure that we all understand that. So that's why the background is the way it is with everything. But as far as what we were talking about, it's all about trying to get resources to get these people out of the dump that they're in. It's all about getting the resources to help people. You always hear people complaining about people who are in certain situations, right? You always hear that, especially Republicans. Republicans are notorious for complaining about the people who are in these situations. And here's the funny part about the Republicans. Not one of them ever step up to try to help those people in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
They never do. They complain about them. They talk about them. They put them down. They use them as talking points. But you don't see a Republican coming into the city saying, mm-hmm. What can I do? Mm-hmm. How can I help you move forward? What can you never see that? But yet they love to run off at the mouth. That's one of the things that that's funny. Where you have the Democrats who know what needs to be done. The Democrats know what needs to be done. But see, if the Democrats do that, then they feel they're going to lose votes, right? So if I keep you down, you're going to keep having to come to me because we believe in big government. And what does that mean when we say big government? That means social programs, correct? Mm-hmm. That's how the the Democratic Party sees it.
Yeah, and self-sustaining independent people don't need social programs.
Exactly. But if I can keep you in this mold, then I can keep fighting for the government to get bigger. Mm-hmm. Where you have the Republicans going, no, I want small government because I don't want to help nobody. But only, pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Mm-hmm. The problem is some people don't even have shoes. And right. You're telling them to pick yourself up by bootstraps that they don't even have. It's crazy sometimes.
So I know when we had, when we had met in person one of those times, you had talked about, some of like the soup kitchens and the food shelves and those kinds of things having shut down in that area. And that was kind of like under a Republican president, that's the kind of things that happen. Like those programs tend to close down.
That's right.
So since Trump has become president, what has it what kinds of things have happened or have you noticed, like in that kind of an aspect? Because I mean, he's shutting down, he's closing down a lot of things. Has that negatively affected people in Minneapolis, people that had been previously relied on those programs? Or I don't know, where is all of that at right now? Because he's been in office for about a month now.
Well, he hasn't gotten started yet.
Okay.
Okay. But got to remember, the first time he was in office, he cut out all of the social services programs where the parks in Minneapolis were feeding some of the kids.
Okay.
When that stopped, that's when my church started feeding some of the kids during the summertime, right? Because Trump cut all that stuff out. The parks were not feeding the kids anymore. So it was up to the churches to feed these kids who did not get breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home, because that was some of the parts that Trump took away. We don't know right now what he's going to do. We don't know how he's going to hurt us, but he will hurt us. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, because that's what a Republican president or a Republican Party does. The Republican Party, what I've learned, I'm just talking about what I've learned and what I know, is they're not about poor people. They're not about. Let me show you something. We've got so many homeless people in Minneapolis, right? I showed you a lot of the homeless people. I showed you the people that was coming in and everything. A lot of those people comes from the suburbs. A lot of those people come from red districts in the state of Minnesota. If you was to get a bus and you go to every one of these homeless camps and say, if you're from a red district in Minnesota, I need you on the bus, you would clear half of the homeless camps in Minneapolis. I'm not kidding you. Because the red districts will not take care of their own. You will not see a homeless camp in Plymouth, in Maple Grove, in Elk River, in Hopkins, in St. Michael, in Orono, in Otsego. You will not see a homeless camp in any of those. Those people will leave their red districts and then go to where they know the homeless camps are, and they'll go where they know they will be taken care of. Republicans don't take care of homeless people. Republicans don't take care. The soup kitchen that are in the Republicans' district right now are so low, it's not even funny. There's a soup kitchen in Rockford, Minnesota, a red district. And the reason I can say this is because I've dropped stuff off there. The stuff that I get, I've dropped stuff off there. That soup kitchen is needing stuff so bad. But you don't have Republicans going to that soup kitchen and restocking it and finding out what they need. You don't.
So then when that's the case, and then you have a disproportionate amount of, I don't know, what's the term I'm looking for? Like you have a community where they don't do anything to help out with the homeless and the people that need it. And then you have a community that gives you everything. Or not everything, because I saw when we went down that homeless camp, they didn't have everything, but but you have, resources there, and, they're not going to do well, but they're not, I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say, because they're not doing well. But, and then, well, anyways, then that becomes overburdened, while some communities are underburdened, if that makes sense. Disproportionately. So I lived in South Carolina for a while, and it was Columbia, South Carolina. So we, the state capital, and we would go down to the downtown with our church, other people at our church, and we would set up like, tables and make soup or lasagnas or whatever it was, and do that once a week for meals. And I mean, there were some days that we were serving lunch to 300 people easily.
Mm-hmm.
And once a week, that's a lot for a small group of people. But the people that were coming and eating, they got to eat more than just once a week. So there's man, I don't know what the answer is, because every community has, you're never not going to have your people that are struggling, and you're never not going to have, you're never not going to have your poor. But I come from the perspective of, part of libertarianism is relying on the community's ability and compassion to come and, create a network, a solution that's localized without relying on government.
I wish that would happen. I wish that would happen.
So I think, there's failures when it comes to like a government and stepping up and being like, well, we're going to meet this need and we're going to provide this for people. While we have people that may approach that initially with, good faith or compassion, or, they're legitimately want to help people. Over time, it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable for us as individuals. It's not good for us. And for like the system as a whole, I don't know. It just doesn't, it's not, the resources all being centralized from one group of people. And then ultimately it just helps the government control and become more powerful. And that also hurts people. So
I don't believe anybody should rely on the government to take care of them, right? Because just like this person said here on your Get Up, he said the fraud is a part of the problem. I agree with that. If the problem, as you all are seeing what's going on here in Minneapolis and in Minnesota now, is you had some bad actors say to themselves, it's better for me to steal from the city than to help the city. Mm-hmm. And it was easy for them to do that because, again, the Democrats believe in a big government. Mm-hmm. We want all of these social programs out here, and we'll give all of this money to these social programs, and then we'll tell them to go do whatever they want to do with the money. That's basically what went on. That's basically what happened, right? So now you've got all of these people running around with all of this money, and they're not doing what is supposed to be done for the people they should be doing it for. Mm-hmm. Again, like I said before, the Bible tells us, I'm not telling you something that you don't know, but the Bible tells us that we will always have the poor with us. The Bible tells us that we should always take care of the poor and the oppressed. That's what God told us to do. Mm-hmm. Whether you look at it in a way of saying, I don't want to give my money to a certain people. I don't want to give my money to this here. If everybody said, you know what, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to give my money to the church, and the church should be doing these things, then we would not have the government. The problem is we've got churches who believe that they should be bigger than life, and every pastor should be driving around with a Mercedes Benz, and he should live in a big house, right? Mm-hmm. That's where we started going wrong when it came to the church. But the church, it's the church's job to take care of the poor in the community. It is their job. No
Right.
ifs, ands, but it's not the government. But when the churches broke down, when the churches stopped doing their job, when they decided to start being mega churches and stop taking care of the very poor that they're making the money off of, that's when the government was like, oh, we're going to step in. That's when thieves start realizing that the government has no accountability for all of this money. And then the people who are actually doing the work or trying to do the work are the ones that everybody always come down on. I get more hate for what I do for the people than it shocks me to hear some of the comments from the very people who call themselves Christians, when it's all said and done, if the church did its job, if the church really did its job, we would not have the government doing what it's doing.
Right.
There wouldn't be any fraud because we wouldn't need the government, because the church would be doing their job. The problem is the churches, when Donald Trump took away the food program for our parks, and you saw the community where my church is. We all those houses, all those people that was around the church, we ended up having to do breakfast and a lunch for those kids. We basically had to start begging people for food, for eggs, for sausage, for oatmeal, for orange juice, and all of that stuff. We had to beg for it. It wasn't like people were showing up and going, "Hey, Rev, I understand you need this for the kids. You need this for the kids. You need this for the kids." Almost to the point where we almost had to go to the government to get money to be able to buy this stuff. Now, if your everyday normal people, your Rebecca's and all of those people, was to come and help the church do what we're supposed to do, we wouldn't need the government.
Right. How many kids do you think you have per meal?
How many kids would come in for breakfast and stuff?
Yeah.
We probably have breakfast usually be about 40. And we got more than that during for lunch. And then we would give bags and fruit and that stuff out for them to take home also with everything. So, and we were one of the people who did not get any of that money that the Somalians took and stole. We didn't get any of that money, but we fed more kids than they did, and come to find out, they were sitting on $120 million, feeding nobody. And here we are feeding kids every single day. And it was hard for us to get a dime from the government, from Tim Walz, to feed these kids. I had people coming as far as St. Cloud with so much food to help us out and things of that sort. I mean, it's just funny how you have to play the game of the government in order for you to help your own people.
Right. So, switching gears a little bit, I wanted to make sure that we talked about, what happened in 2020 with the riots and the burning and, when George Floyd died, and all of that kind of stuff. Talk about, the events that led up to that. And we all know about the lockdowns, but, the problems that exist in the community that made it such a powder keg during May. It was May of 2020, and then afterwards the reactions. It's been 5 years, almost 5 years since then, and I think that a lot of people, I just, what I don't want to have happen is that people forget about what happened. Because I don't feel like, just, from an outsider observing, that circumstances that led up to that have changed significantly. That A, they haven't changed. B, I might argue that it's worse. What is your perspective?
Um, can I answer a question real quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So the person said if the programs build people up to where they no longer need the program, that will be a workable model. Perfect. I'm glad somebody said that. And that's what I've been fighting for. That's the reason why I said that we need to find a way to get jobs around the city, right? Because if we don't get jobs around the city to give these people, like I said, a place to go to work so they can get off the government, then we're never going to get them off the government. Because who's going to take care of them if they don't have a job? If the government is not taking care of these people? If you got, like I said, if you got 2 kids, what people need to understand, what people don't get a lot of the times is the people that they're talking about and that we're dealing with, right? We're dealing with like, again, a single mom with two kids who have no car. You understand what I'm saying? So this mom has no car. She uses the bus system for transportation. It would be nice to have her a job somewhere in that area where she can drop her kids off and then get to work and do. But when you don't have that, when you're not a governor who's trying to bring jobs in and around the city, then those very people who need the government help is not going to get the help that they need. It's not going to get the work that they need. So they're not necessarily going to be getting off the model that they're just talking about. So I just wanted to put that out there real quick. Because again, like I said, a lot of times we look at these people and we think that they can just get up tomorrow and they can go get a job all the way out in Eden Prairie, 45 minutes to 30 minutes away from them. That's where all the jobs are. It's just I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. It just don't. At the end of the deal. So I just want to make sure that I answered that question there real quick. But going forward, Rebecca, what we need to do is I'm just going to tell you what I have been pushing.
Okay.
Is we need to get from up under these parties, right? I don't consider myself to be a Republican, and I don't consider, because I've done both parties. When I first voted, first time I voted, I'm about to tell my age here in a second, but you can tell by my grades. But I voted as a Republican, right? And I went through that whole Republican thing, and I realized that the Republicans are just not for me. I tried the Democrats, and I realized the Democrats are just not for me. So I vote on issues. If you have an issue, if I've got an issue, and we can get on the same page with my issue, more than likely you got my vote, whether that's a Democrat or a Republican. I'm about issues. I'm not about a party. I will not be part of a cult,
right,
at all. I'm not playing that, because I don't have time for that, because the way I see it, both sides have treated us the exact same way. We can't sit there and act like the Republicans have always been there for us, and we can't act like the Democrats have always been there for us. Both sides have let us down. No ifs, no ands, no buts. So I don't push and say you should vote Democrat, and I don't push and say you should vote Republican. What I say is pick an issue and then go vote with whatever the issue you believe that's going to pick your family up, pick up the state, and things of that sort. That's where you need your vote to go.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I just can't run behind. I can't run behind a party.
Right.
I can't run behind someone who's going to knock on my door and say to me, I'm going to go up here and work for you. I don't need you to work for me. What I need you to do is go up and work with me. I
Right.
need to be able to tap on your door and be able to sit down and have a conversation with you. And I need you to understand what I say to you. So when you are up there doing the things that we discussed, you understand that it's not just on you. It's not just about you. We've got right now in Minnesota, we've got the Republicans and the Democrats. They're more into being stars and your sound bites so they can get their name out there on Facebook and on Twitter and all this here type of stuff. That's what they're fighting about. That's what they're doing. The Republicans can't put up good candidates to be able to knock down some of the stuff that the Democrats are doing, because the Republicans, most of the people that the Republicans put up for candidates are out here saying stupid, nutty things.
Yeah.
They don't know how to. When Scott Jensen ran for governor, I was part of Scott Jensen's team. I did a lot of stuff on the background, in the background for Scott. What I was trying to teach Scott to do was how to come into Hennepin County to be able to talk to the people. When you come into Hennepin County, we want to hear policy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want to hear. We want to hear policy. We want to hear what you're gonna do to raise everybody up to get Minnesota to moving forward. We don't want to hear about stolen elections. We don't want to hear about cat boxes. We don't want to hear about none of that goofy tin hat foil crap. That's not what we're asking for. And the Republicans can't leave their base and come into Hennepin County and really speak to the people. They just can't do it because they're so used to having to say stupid things before they come into Hennepin County. I've told them over and over and over, you have to start talking to the people who want to hear about what you're going to do to make sure that everybody in Minnesota has a fighting chance. Period, point blank. I worked with Matt Burke. I worked with Scott Jensen. I worked with Ryan Wilson. I worked with all of them. But they couldn't do what I asked them to do.
So do you think, well, we kind of went off a little bit. So I want to make sure we get back to, the riots and that kind of stuff. But do you think that, well, and see, here's the thing. And if people are like me, somebody knocks on the door and they say, hey, we're running for such and such seat. Here's my positions. I'm going to be automatically suspicious and quite cynical. So if you, so what do you think is the best kind of, I don't know, maybe strategy is the right word. Is it literally just going like door to door and talking to people? Because I don't want somebody like that I vote for. I don't want somebody to just come and like talk to me and they say the right things one time just to get a vote, and then after that you're gone and you don't see them until the next election. Yeah. Because that I think that's the really the crux of the political issue, is that people have lost faith in the political system. But I don't think it's because of like election issues necessarily, but because that people are more likely to vote for the lesser of the two evils than they are for somebody that they actually agree with, because it seems like no matter what options you have good, or no, I'm sorry, disregard that. You have bad or worse. And so you have to pick when you go to the voting, booth or whatever, between bad and worse. And so then that has created a scenario where people are like, well, if I'm going to vote at all, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. There's no faith left in the people who run for office. People don't trust them. And I mean, I don't. So, how do you overcome that? I guess is my question.
Well, what you just said there, you saying you just don't show up one time.
Mm,
The only time that we see these politicians is when they want to vote.
yeah.
You don't see them during the time of crisis.
Mm,
You don't see. I've never. You know what I've never seen as many mothers that I've hugged when their baby is shot, laying in the middle of the street with a blanket over them. I've never turned and seen a politician standing anywhere around that ever.
mm,
Right? When we're having balloon releases or we're doing a you know where we all come together over a shooting. I've yet to see a politician ever show up for any of those. It's been visual. It's been in the midst of the things that happen,
mm-hmm.
not just when I need your vote. So you asked a question about, and I'll say this here, and I'll say it over and over again. George Floyd did not have to die.
Mm-hmm.
He did not have to die. Okay. George Floyd died of his own doing, number one. So let's make sure we understand what I'm about to say here, because a lot of people get pissed, but because I was in the middle of everything that happened, I can say what I want to say, and I can put it any way I want to put it.
Right.
But in 2019, you can look this up.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the Capitol and I testified about what was about to happen. This is 2019. Look it up. I looked at the Democrats on this side and I looked at the Republicans on this side. And I told them that something is about to happen. I said, because the streets are getting thick. Things are going on that y'all don't realize is happening. One of the things that I'm going to put out here tonight, I want people to do is, if you want to understand what I'm saying, is the DOJ did a report on the Minneapolis Police Department. You need to look that report up and read it. Read it, and then you will understand exactly what I'm about to say. The Minneapolis Police Department was so rife with just wrongdoing. People were just fed up. People were like, look, if this is how you're going to police the community, right? Then we don't want you around anymore. We don't even want you to police the community. Because what people outside of Minneapolis had zero clue is they had these things called jump out boys. You ever heard of them? You know what they are?
No, I honestly have not.
Okay. So there are police that drive around in a car. You got probably about 4 police officers in an unmarked car.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden they'll pull out, they'll jump out, and they'll grab somebody, right? Boom, throw them to the ground, just violently taking care of this person. And everybody's like, whoa, 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 right? All of this stuff that was going on in the community, all of this stuff that was happening in the community, and the police were doing the things that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So now everybody's like, we don't trust the police.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then the 4th precinct, who basically precinct around the largest group of African Americans in the community, decided to put up a racist Christmas tree. You ever see that?
No, I didn't. I'm gonna
look it up. 4th precinct. Write it down. I want you to write this down. I want you to write down 4th precinct racist Christmas tree. Just write it down. You like I said, all of this here is what led up to what went down with George Floyd. The stores and the community around that area George Floyd was in,
Mm-hmm.
that used to be a good area. That used to be a place that you can walk down and you can take your family. And then it started turning really bad. What did the shop owners, what did the business owners do over there? Nothing. Nothing. They didn't do anything. They didn't say anything. Drugs was being sold all up and down the street. It turned into a bad area. Do you really think George Floyd was over there just to hang out, to be around friends? No, George was over there because George realized what was over there. Everybody knew what was over on 38th in Chicago. The counterfeit bills that was floating around Chicago and 38th. That's why the shop owner put in a rule that said if you accept as an employee a $20 bill, that's coming out of your check, because so much counterfeit money was floating around that area, it wasn't even funny. But had the Democrats and the Republicans, had the city council and the mayor actually took what was going on in that city seriously, had they realized all the problems that it was happening downtown, because downtown was rife with criminals. I mean, the gangs was taking over downtown like you wouldn't believe. So all of this stuff basically meshed together. And when the officer put his knee into George Floyd, that was the match that lit the powder. The powder keg was already there, Rebecca. Mm-hmm. It was already there. Mm-hmm. Only thing they needed was a light match. But do you know who Philando Castile is?
Yeah, actually, I did want to talk about him because not literally the same situation, but he was still killed by police.
He was the guy. That was the guy. Mm-hmm. If Philando Castile gets murdered, the powers to be and the gatekeepers in the community suppress that. Mm-hmm. They basically they got out in front of it. The gatekeepers, the mayors, the city, everybody got out in front of that. But that was the guy that should have been George Floyd. Mm-hmm. Philando Castile. That was the guy. So when they murdered Philando Castile and that police officer walked, they basically put the lid on the bomb. Mm-hmm. And put the wick into the bomb. Mm-hmm. Only thing we needed now was somebody to come along with a match and light it. And that's what happened with Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin was the match to light it. And then after that, because the powers to be and the gatekeepers could not control the people anymore. They could not get in front of it. No matter what type narrative they try to put out there, just hold on. Let us get to the bottom of this. Everything that the city was saying. That's why Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, that's why they had no answers. Because they was hoping that the gatekeepers and everybody who could quell down some of the hate, some of the fear, some of just the boiling point, they were hoping those people got on top of that. It was too late. It was too late, Rebecca.
Well, and I know, and this is something I want to touch on just a little bit, but there is, so the police system in Minneapolis helped create the situation.
That's right.
That led to everything that was going on.
That's right.
And I think that anybody that was thinking about it critically would realize that, there was no way that wasn't new. That, no. A lot of, maybe it was shocking to some people because they weren't, they're not paying attention. All of a sudden, like a major city like Minneapolis is literally on fire. And that is that is a very extreme situation, but something I do want to talk about is because the Minneapolis police, and maybe it's not just Minneapolis, probably St. Paul and some of the other communities around there too, because a lot of times the police, the precincts and the different groups, they work together. But we had groups in Minnesota dating all the way back to at least the 90s, like the Metro Gang Strike Force.
Mm-hmm. Crooked, corrupt.
That they were so bad that they were disbanded by the FBI.
That's right.
For extreme corruption in 2008-ish, somewhere around there, right?
Yep.
And there are people that are still living the repercussions of having to deal with law enforcement that was just so awful, like that group. And I'm thinking about like Philip Vance, who there's been a big push to get him out of prison. He's been sitting in prison for 22 years. And by everything that I've read and people that I've talked to about this, the evidence is extraordinary that he's there unjustly for a murder he didn't commit, but he's there for life. He doesn't even have the opportunity for parole for 30 years. And he was 21 years old when he went to prison. So then you have like these kinds of situations, and he's not the only one. Was it last year? Was it in 24 that Marvin Haynes was released from prison?
That's right.
After spending 20 years.
Amy Klobuchar.
Yep. Oversaw that. And what did she get for it? I mean, she's now a U.S. Senator.
Myron Burrell.
Yep.
Amy Klobuchar.
And so, when you have an environment and I say I'm going to use the word toxic, but it's just so much more than just being toxic. But of course people are angry. Normal people would be angry. So
people are mad because, I mean, I'll go back to the part where, again, like I said, when people were talking about dismantling, right, the police department, defunding the police department, all of this here type of stuff with the police department. Again, see, people don't like knowing. People don't like the truth, because that's why I always when I hear people talk about, oh well, they're talking about dismantling the police department. It was talking about defunding. I always ask them why. Why were they talking about dismantling the police? Think about it. Dismantling the police department. Why? Because the police department was so bad that people said, we don't want you around. They did things. We just talked about it. Myron Burrell, if you look at all his tape, all the stuff that happened before he was arrested, before the police was corrupt, so corrupt that they railroaded this kid at 16 years old. Amy Klobuchar put him behind bars for the rest of his life. Melvin Hayes, another 16-year-old boy. Amy Klobuchar put him behind bars for the rest of his life. But in order to get him to trial, the Minneapolis Police Department lied and was so corrupt that the community and everybody else wanted them gone. And that's what people outside of Hennepin County don't realize, just how bad the police. Now, the police are not like that in their community, in their neighborhood. That they couldn't understand how a police department can be as bad as the St. Paul. The St. Paul Police Department is the worst. The St. Paul Police Department is worse than the Minneapolis Police Department by far. By far. You just don't hear a lot of things that happen out of St. Paul because of the gag order that goes on in St. Paul. They like to act like St. Paul don't have problems when there's shooting in St. Paul, there's prostitution in St. Paul, there's thefts in St. Paul, there's assaults in St. Paul, but you don't ever hear about it because they like to act like they're this great city, but all of this stuff is going on right up under everybody's nose. Mm-hmm. The mayor will not put shot spotters in St. Paul because he don't want to be embarrassed. He wants to make sure it all looks good. Where you have the Minneapolis Police Department is so crooked that the St. Paul Police Department came and got them to do a no-knock warrant because the St. Paul Police Department will not do no-knock warrants. They don't do them. So they decided, let's go get the Minneapolis Police Department to do this no-knock warrant because that's just how crooked they are. That's when they killed Amir Locke, the kid that was in that apartment. He jumped up. He had a right to have a firearm, and they shot this kid. The Minneapolis Police Department did that. And nobody has ever come to be accounted for what that police department did at all. Jacob Fry, nobody, the black community says nothing to Jacob Fry. So when you talk about George Floyd, how did that happen? Why did that happen? It's because of everything that led up to it, whether it was the community, the people selling drugs, whether it was the police department rife with corruption, whether it was the store owners out there who did not tell about the selling of drugs, who did not call the police department when there was assaults, all of this stuff. It was so much stuff that was put into this keg. When it blew up, they had no choice but to put this man in jail. Mm-hmm. They had no choice. They had Derek Chauvin and every cop that touched George Floyd had to go to jail. They had to. They had to go. Mm-hmm. Period.
So since then, I think I know the answer to this question. But if you have an environment where the people that you're supposed to be turning to for management and justice and all of those kinds of things are simply just trying to cover it up and make it go away as fast as possible, then that hasn't changed since then.
No.
And so really, it's just going to take something else for this to happen all over again. In the right circumstances.
I don't think it's going to be as big. But the way things are going right now, it's leading up to it. Mm-hmm. You can just see the stacks of dynamite slowly but surely. It's getting back there. But I'm going to say this here, Rebecca. These police officers who did not run have been doing a fabulous job. They have. You don't see violent takedowns as much as you did before. Before, anytime you see a cop on somebody, they was putting their knee into their side, they was punching them, they was doing all of this stuff. That was routine. Mm-hmm. You don't see that as much anymore. You see them making arrests where they got the person out, they patting the person down, they get them handcuffed, they put them in the car, right? It's not all of this extra. And that's what that was the problem with and all of these cops that sit there and talk about they retired and all of this here type of stuff. Well, the precincts are short police officers because they retired and they wanted. No, what happened was is you had a group of police officers who just could not come to the point in their head that they have to change the way they were doing things. They would rather retire and get away from the city. And that's good, because right now we have good cops. We've got cops, like I said before, that they're doing the right things in the community. They really, really are. Most of those cops that left are the ones that were doing dirt in the community. So it's good that they left. Fine. See you. Bye. Because the ones that are here right now, man, it's a total game changer. It's a total game changer.
A while back, and I can't remember who. Well, I don't know. Maybe this is just the mentality is a little, or the assumption is a little prevalent. But I've had people be like, "Oh, the Libertarian Party, they hate cops," and I think that's that's not true. B, what I think is what's actually going on is that we want justice, like people who want to be able to, live their lives freely, that part of truth is justice. And when the people that you're supposed to turn to for justice are the ones that are corrupt, then, you go after that also. That doesn't mean like just, going after a cop who's done something wrong doesn't mean you hate cops. Because there is, you still have to have a way for free people to be able to address their grievances. And if something has happened to them, loss of their, property or theft or any of that kind of stuff, there has to be a way to address that. The problem is that what we're facing, and you're facing down in Minneapolis and in the metro, is people who have used their position in bad faith as an act of aggression against people who would have otherwise been peaceful. And I mean, is a population always going to be 100% peaceful? No, that's unrealistic. But when it's disproportionately, when you've lost, and again, lost faith in the avenues of the system to be able to address what you need to maintain a peaceful people, then there is a problem. And if that means that libertarians tend to hate cops, I would argue that what we actually want is accountability and justice. And who do you go to for justice when the people who are supposed to be managing the justice are the problem? Who do you go to? How do you address that when the court systems are corrupt, when the police departments are corrupt, when the executive, like the governor, the senators, the people that are making the laws are corrupt? What do you do after that?
There's nothing you can do but, go and try to voice your opinion. And the one thing I've learned about these candidates, these legislators, they understand two things. They understand money and a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fight a system by yourself. You can't. You've got to get people who like-minded like yourself to be able to deal with what's in front of you. Any type of trials they are, because they won't listen to just one person, right? They're not going to listen to you if you don't bring them a lot of money, so they can run their candidate and things of that sort. So your average person who has a problem with the system not going to get anything fixed unless they can go out and get 100 people to go up to the Capitol, and you sit into one of those committee meetings and you say, I brought people who of the same mind that I am. If you don't, you have no shot, no chance at all. And it's at a place now where in the black community, a lot of people have just given up. A lot of
Hmm.
people don't vote no more. They don't care who's in office. It just doesn't matter to them because they figure they whether they get spit on or not, they're going to end up at the bottom of the barrel anyway. So
Right.
if they try to crawl out, they're just going to get pulled down. And the thing about it is, they're going to get pulled down basically by people that look like them. So a lot of people have honestly just given up. I mean, if I was asked to get together with a bunch of black people out of many, is as bad as you saw it is down there, right? To say let's go to the legislators and talk to them about cleaning up Broadway. I ain't get nobody to show up. I ain't get nobody to show up. They barely even go out and vote, right? Ain't get nobody to show up. A lot of people just giving up.
Yeah. Well, I have really enjoyed having you on this evening, talking about these things. And I think one of the things that I've kind of I've tried to be intentional about, because I live in a northern rural community, and Minnesota is a really big state.
Yes, man.
I mean, it takes me 7 hours to get to the Iowa border, from where I'm at. Almost 7 hours, maybe a little less than that, depending on traffic. But, there's a lot of different, I don't know, perspectives, I guess I would say, on what people want, or, the way that they see things. I don't know. And so having like the conversations with people that you wouldn't normally perhaps, cross paths with, I think is very important. And the other thing that I think is very important is making sure that, having an avenue for other people's stories, because it's really easy to just be like, oh, see the statistics from someplace else. But that's kind of dehumanizing. And so when it's more than just a statistic, when it's friends, or when you're, a part of, or you have connections to the community that's involved, then people, I think, are more compelled to, to do something, or when somebody needs help. I don't know. But I think also overall, we're kind of living in a culture right now that just has rejected the idea that they need to be part of their neighbors' lives. And I don't actually like that. I don't like that mentality, I think that's really sad. But so I would love to have you back sometime. And I try to keep these about, and I guess I should have told you that before we started, but about an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, we start losing people's attention. But and I do want to actually say to the people that are watching, is that our state convention is March 8th and 9th in St. Paul. And so that's the one time of the year. It's kind of like a family reunion inside the Libertarian Party in Minnesota. There's a lot of people that come together that, especially, we like, maybe we'll see each other like individually, but then this is our opportunity where everybody comes together. And it's really nice. We also do business, have elections. If it's a year with an election, we do endorsements, that kind of stuff. Try to keep people involved, but people that are of the libertarian perspective, that would be more likely to seek a free market solution, and try to have still meet the needs of people, but through a way that circumvents government involvement, I guess is the way I'll put that. So but anyways, do you have anything that you would like to say before we close?
Yeah, you know what? Because I was going to bug you anyway
Okay.
to see if there's a group you know of up there in Bemidji that I can come up and talk to. Last couple weekends ago, Brad Kohler, I don't know if you know who he is.
I do not.
Okay, Brad Kohler is running for governor.
Okay.
And I'm more than likely going to be on his ticket running for lieutenant governor
Okay. Very cool.
of the state of Minnesota. So I don't know if your party is going to be running somebody for governor or lieutenant governor or whatever. But if not, we would like to have someone that we could get in contact with up in that area to be able to come up and talk to some people.
Okay.
We were down in, I don't know if you ever heard of Mabel, Minnesota.
I have not actually.
It's probably about an hour down south of the border because you said the Iowa. It's about an hour away from Iowa. It's 3 hours from here. We went down there and spoke to some people.
Okay.
But it's time for us to make a difference. It's time for us to make a change, and it's time for us to put people who understand Minnesotans in these seats so we can actually work with Minnesotans.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Brad and I are two people. He's a business mind. I'm more of a street-minded person.
Mm-hmm.
Our lieutenant governor did nothing for us the whole time she was there. I believe that getting out and learning and understanding and talking and listening to people is what a lieutenant governor should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really good at that. Really good at that. So just to let you know, that's what's about to come down the pike.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into him. I will definitely, because that totally interests me. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like always, is Brad Brad Kohler is the WCC, the UFC fighter. Yes.
Okay.
And again, Rebecca, for people who on here, I like I said, for what you have done for us, and so I just want to thank you. And you know what I'm talking about. So
Yep.
if you want to tell them, you can. But you have been nothing but a staunch someone who came through when we needed you and in a clutch. So, but that's how. Well, we didn't tell them real quick. So we met on. Did we meet on? We met on Facebook, right? I mean, Twitter.
Yeah, actually, I had a friend. Maybe it's a common friend. He told me I should get in touch with you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think it was just through text message initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I reached out and I was like, hey, I don't know. I don't really have like that, that thing that keeps people from being like, hey, my name's so-and-so. Nice to meet you. I don't have that. So that's what happened.
Right. Sounds like a deal. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you for reaching out to give me an opportunity to come and hang out with you. So, but we're like this. So no problem at all.
All right. Perfect. And for everybody else that's watching, lpmn.org, if you want to find out more information about the Libertarian Party, place membership, make donations, any of that kind of stuff, or find out information about our upcoming state convention, March 8th and 9th in St. Cloud. And I'll have more information next week on our Defend the Guard initiative, because there's been a lot of movement. And you were talking about like groups of people having the power of doing things. That's kind of what's happening. And what the end result will be, I don't know yet, but we'll see. So see everybody next week.